You were listening to the Mark Petroni radio program, heard exclusively on News Talk Saga 960.
And we are back with more on News Talk Saga 960. So very glad that you could join us on this Monday edition of the Mark Petroni Show. We have Miles Kristen on the line coming to us from the southern tip of Wisconsin. Are you the southern tip? You call it that, or southern half, or southern third? Of, you don't want to be... I know you want to be careful. You don't want to let any Antifa people know exactly where you are. So
yeah, but I'm in southern Wisconsin.
Well, okay. So I know you didn't vote for Donald Trump, but you've got to be impressed with some of those massive rallies. You had 48,000 people show up. I believe it was in Sarasota, I think, for a huge rally. And then he went to the UFC fight recently, and this is what it sounded like, Miles. Huge round of applause for the president number 45, making his way through the crowd. He's waving to the crowd, people shooting videos. People still seem to love Donald Trump, Miles. There he is, another big round of applause. All right, so he's having his big rallies again. People are getting motivated. Even in places like New York City, we're seeing signs that Trump is still popular. And frankly, he missed. There's the story about the guy with the MAGA hat. And he was told to take it off or something like that, or someone took it away from him, and then he got it back. And then everybody was saying, put it on, put it on. So people seem to be quite taken with Trump still. Now, is this a sign, in your view, that in fact he is going to run in 2024?
I would definitely bet on him running again, and I could even see the possibility of him winning the Republican primary, because, you know, you might have 15 candidates in that primary, and he could didn't matter if he got 30% and everybody else got 10%, he would become the candidate of the Republican Party. And then if it was a rematch of him and Biden, I would see him potentially winning the next time around. Who knows? I mean, maybe Biden will resign by then and let Kamala take over, which Kamala's not that likable.
Okay, so what happened with that? There was so much love, at least on the part of the hardcore left, for Kamala, who said that she was the heir apparent, that she was going to be the one to take over from Joe. But so far, her performance has been dismal, particularly on the border issue.
Yeah, and you can look at like what issues they're taking up and what issues they're not taking up. And I think they could actually be doing a lot more as far as COVID and containing it and fighting it. And they seem to be going on a lot of issues that really weren't the issues that got them elected. And they're doing a lot of really divisive stuff that really alienates any, conservatives. And you think about it, I know you and I probably have different opinions on like whether there was fraud or not, but essentially Biden won because of about 40,000 votes is what changed the state. And the election could have easily gone for Donald Trump. And they're not doing anything to win over conservatives. They are pushing this agenda that is, pretty bad. And I think they're going to see the results of that in a year and a half with the midterms. And I mean, Trump could become president again in 2024, the way things are going.
I have to ask you about this push by the Biden administration to go door to door. Biden saying that this has to take place in order to get everybody vaccinated. Let's listen to Joe Biden.
A special focus on 5 ways to make gains in getting those of you who are unvaccinated vaccinated. Because here's the deal. We are continuing to wind down the mass vaccination sites that did so much in the spring to rapidly vaccinate those eager to get their first shot and their second shot, for that matter, if they needed a second. Now we need to go to community by community, neighborhood by neighborhood, and oftentimes door to door, literally knocking on doors to get help to the remaining people protected from the virus.
Well, what do you mean? I mean, if people wanted, look, if Biden should know, I mean, he probably does know that if people wanted the vaccine, that they would go to one of these sites and get vaccinated. Why the push to go door to door? There's something a little creepy about that. I don't know. What do you think?
It is creepy. It is creepy. And I mean, while I did get the vaccine, and I would definitely recommend people get one of the vaccines, and also they should have more than the option of just one or the other. I mean, worldwide, there's a number of different vaccines, and people should be able to choose whichever vaccine they want. And in a free market system, it definitely cannot be a mandatory thing. Though, I mean, I strongly recommend people do it. I would never support it being mandatory. And we give certain communities a pass on. We criticize people on the right who don't want to get it, but then we have large, populations in our urban communities that are refusing to get it. And I mean, for them, I understand where it comes out of this, fear from what happened with the Tuskegee experiments. And that's a legitimate, reason to be concerned. But at the same time, who's dying the most from COVID are, poor people and people of color and so forth. So, I don't know why we're ignoring so much that certain communities are refusing to get it.
Well, so Tuskegee, that's the group of mainly black men who were injected with syphilis. The government actually, did it use these men for experiments? I mean, telling them that they should get a shot to protect them, and then they ended up injecting substances that hurt those individuals and sometimes kill them.
On top of that, I mean, conspiracy, be it real or fake, there are those who think that, AIDS was in one way created or, developed by the government, and that intentionally or unintentionally that they gave it to people. I mean, there are valid reasons for some level of paranoia when it comes to the government and handling disease and so forth. But, when you look at the facts about the numbers on COVID and how the vaccines have worked to prevent it, I mean, it's just, we have so many people in the United States who are choosing not to get it. And also, I think you go back to, we just gave everybody that, $2,000 check not too long ago. And it's like, well, the government didn't have to give people a $2,000 check. They could have had it set up where, you take the jab, you get your check. And I think you would have seen even more people get it then.
What's your thinking of the story around Tucker Carlson, the fact that he's been spied on by the National Security Agency? Let's listen a little bit to Tucker talking to Maria Bartiromo.
To say the government is spying on me because you sound like a crazy person. And of course, you would never say that unless you knew that it was true. And I did know that it was true. Almost accidentally, I was in Washington for a funeral last week and ran into someone I know well who said, I have a message for you. And then proceeded to repeat back to me details from emails and texts that I sent and had told no one else about. So it was verified, and this person said, look, the NSA has this, and that was proven by the person repeating back the contents of the email, and is going to use it against you. Now, to be totally blunt with you, I would never have said this in public if it was something I felt was wrong or illegal or immoral. They don't actually have anything on me, but they do have my emails. So.
All right, so I know that you've been opposed to the Patriot Act and spying on citizens and violations of people's constitutional rights. What is going on here with Tucker Carlson and apparently what many people believe is an attack by the Biden administration using the NSA to spy on Tucker and ultimately to discredit him?
Yeah, I mean, The spying, I've heard that the spying actually started as early as in the 90s under the Bill Clinton administration, and then all throughout the Bush administration, it was believed by many that the government was spying on mass amounts of people. Then on the Obama administration with Edward Snowden, we come to realize, yeah, they're collecting everything, every piece of data out there, every text, every email, everything. And so really they're just pinpointing in on him. And, people get really, really upset with Tucker Carlson, and there's things I disagree with him on, but he has the absolute freedom and right to say and think whatever he wants. And I really get confused as to why people get so upset with him, and yet you'll have somebody on MSNBC basically advocating for a war, and we just completely ignore that.
That's bizarre. I know you like talking about what's going on in the Madison area, which seems to have fallen completely under the control of some radical leftists. And
it is the most bizarre thing ever, and every time I think it can't get any worse, any crazier, they one up it. They just gave away $1.6 million to a activist organization, and I'm almost hesitant to name these organizations, but there's a lot of nonprofits. Most of the nonprofits are probably very legitimate, but you have two that are heavily involved in activism, work directly in campaigning, which you're not supposed to be a nonprofit 501c3 and be involved in campaigns. You're not supposed to be working with a political party, and they do. They work directly with this Party for Liberation and Socialism. These people are very authoritarian Marxists, and it's rare you're going to hear me going on about Marxists, but the city is now, funding these groups. They have taken over the school board. They have created an artificial crisis, saying that there was this big problem with the police in schools. Really, there wasn't a problem. There was kids committing violence, and the cops were there to break up fights and so forth. And they got the cops pulled out of the schools by showing up at school board members' houses in mass numbers and threatening them. They have now taken, basically you have activists have taken over the city and are just siphoning off millions and millions of dollars.
Scary stuff. I want to get back to the vaccines because I understand, and I hope you're able to talk a little bit about that. I understand that your wife, Kimberly, actually came down with COVID even though she'd been vaccinated. She was double vaxxed, but somehow managed still to come down with COVID. Does that bother you? And what's her condition now? What's her situation health-wise?
She's doing much better. Her catching it was a 1 in 10,000 scenario of people who've had the vaccine, and I would say that her symptoms were far less severe due to the fact that she was vaccinated. There are these variants out there, and we've seen how businesses everywhere have done certain things to adjust to the possibility of COVID. We've got more and more outdoor seating now. Things are opening back up. Everything in Wisconsin's pretty much open back up. I don't know of any real regulations anywhere. And then if you go to the real touristy parts of Wisconsin, like, Door County, Wisconsin Dells, people are, it's like it never happened.
Yeah, I know you're looking up in Canada and going, what's up with North Korea up there? It's pretty crazy. I just
don't know. They got to. My opinion would be, focus on getting vaccines, and also, any sort of treatment options for somebody suffering with COVID should be available. I'm baffled by the fact that they're actually arresting preachers who are doing outdoor congregations. That's absolutely insane to me.
Our level of vaccination is, my understanding, is comparable to that of in the United States. In terms of double vac, we've caught up, and in some cases even surpassed, a good chunk of the United States in terms of getting people vaxxed who want to be vaxxed. But I guess it's just not as much as some of the authorities would like, and so it seems that we're being punished because we're not up to that 70% level or whatever the hell they think they need. But I don't know, it's kind of scary, and I don't like the direction that a good chunk of the world is going in. There's this from Biden as well. I want to ask you about his cognitive issues. He was asked about Putin. Let's listen to this question by a reporter.
Well, I made it very clear to him that
it's like he forgot what he was talking
the
about.
United States expects when a ransomware operation is coming from his soil, even though it's not sponsored by the state, we expect them to act if we give them enough information.
Okay, he was talking about the ransomware attacks.
And secondly, that we've set up a means of communications now on a regular basis.
He doesn't look good, Miles. He seems to forget what he's talking about mid-sentence. Are you troubled by that?
Well, yeah, and the thing is, I always, growing up, I would always talk about how, Reagan most likely had dementia while he was in office. I mean, there's no doubt, absolutely no doubt, that when he left office, he, had severe dementia. And yet, and policies aside of Reagan, whatever, when he gave speeches, he didn't mumble, he didn't sound incoherent, he sounded pretty cognitive when he gave his speeches and so forth. And now here you've got this guy. I mean, there's absolutely obvious difference now versus 7 months ago versus a year and a half ago. And then it's like you look at footage of Joe Biden from the early 2000s, and he spoke much faster, much more, together.
Coherently, yeah. I mean, yeah, he was just as corrupt as he is now, I think, but he seems to have been, you're right, I've seen some of those shots, even 5 years ago, 5 years. I think the decline has been precipitous, I would say, in the last year. Would you agree with that?
Well, and you see these rallies nowadays, and it's always about, it's about like the illusion of diversity, not real diversity, not a difference of opinion, not really building coalition. They have no interest in, say, building a coalition of, libertarians and Greens and progressives and different types. It's all about, pretending that you have this very woke, diverse group, and they go out there and they pretend to be very radical, and they speak this game of that they're intersectionality this and equity, but then at the end of the day they're still hawking the policies of and for these establishment politicians. Like in Madison, you've got people that they say, oh, we don't need these legacy politicians, blah blah blah, and they say all this stuff at the rally. And then they're having an event with Barack Obama. I mean, these are all online events they're hosting, but it's like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and John Kerry and all these hack corporate establishment politicians. So there's like what we're seeing in the United States right now is this like corporate radicalism. You pretend to be radical on the streets, and then when it comes still at the end of the day, you're gonna suck up to Joe Biden. You're not gonna question the Democrats.
Absolutely. Miles, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Miles Christen coming to us from Wisconsin. That's it for me on this edition of the Mark Petroni Show on Saga 960. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Let's do it again tomorrow, shall we? See you then. Bye-bye for now.
No radio? No problem. Stream us live on saga960am.ca.